Hello, I am Roza Tulyaganova, and I am an associate professor of voice at Mississippi State University.
And I am Jeanette Fontaine, and I'm also an associate professor of voice at Mississippi State. Today, we will be talking about rethinking education for the modern generation. In today's rapidly changing world, it is clear that traditional educational methods need to evolve.
In this presentation, we provide many ideas for innovation, but this is not to tell you to change everything at once. We recommend making small, subtle changes over time.
We also want to emphasize that this is a broad overview of innovation in education, so we will not go into great detail for most of the topics due to time constraints. This presentation is intended to expose us to a variety of ideas. So, what works best in education?
Should we teach as we were taught? Absolutely not. We must adapt. The old system is not working anymore. We can see this in many ways. One is that fewer students want to study at universities. Some social media blogs reveal that the younger generation do not see the value of higher education as it currently stands.
Our next question, does empathy matter? There's a greater push today toward understanding our students and trying to meet their needs. We are beginning to shift from a teacher-centric classroom to a student-centric classroom or learner-centric classroom, and this is really exciting.
What does risk-taking have to do with education? Well, innovation cannot happen without risk. So if we want to be innovative teachers, we have to be willing to take risks and try new things. Sometimes those things might not work, but that's how we learn. Leaders, teachers, and students must all be willing to take risk for advancements to occur. And here are some ideas for innovation in education that we will discuss today.
It's important to note this list is not comprehensive. It's just intended to give us some ideas.
And many of you already may be employing some of these ideas and techniques, but ideally we all should employ these ideas.
Absolutely. So first, we're going to talk about how to demonstrate applicability. We list some of the possible methods here. Relevance to real-life situations. It is important to demonstrate relevance to our students. For example, in a history class, the instructor can present a real case from current events that mirrors the history being explored, and then have students detail how the current events align with those of the historical ones, and in so doing, predict possible outcomes.
In music, for example, a mock audition would be an example of real life situation. Students audition and then receive feedback from the judges. In accounting, it could be learning how to do taxes or how to invest money. Students demonstrate knowledge and skills. Students need to be given the opportunity to demonstrate their acquired knowledge and skills. The teacher becomes less of a central figure in the classroom and more like a coach or a facilitator, guiding and advising the students, but letting them take the center stage in their learning. For example, in my class, I very often ask students to teach a chapter from the textbook. So they come to the front of the room and teach each other. In my experience, when you teach, you learn the best.
Field trips, community work, and case studies are all great tools for demonstrating applicability. We think of these as being in-person activities, but keep in mind that today they could also be done virtually, such as virtual tours. Next, we have broaden offerings beyond standard degree programs. For some students, this can be really beneficial. More universities are offering degrees in interdisciplinary studies, which allow students to combine courses from 2 or even 3 different majors, creating an entirely new degree program.
Also, trade schools and continuing education are becoming more popular. For certain jobs, you don't need to have a degree to qualify. Competency-based education, a very hard word for me to say. I'll say CBE. So CBE focuses on desired outcomes for learners rather than the traditional structure of the educational system.
CBE also includes students learning at their own pace, self-directed learning, and learning in groups more so than the traditional classroom setting.
Our next slide is talking about implementing hands-on learning. The traditional model in education is the lecture model, but today interactive classrooms can be much more beneficial in engaging and empowering students, and we'll discuss this in more detail. We also recommend using AI games such as Kahoot or Bamboozle. These are highly interactive platforms that engage students by incorporating elements of competition and gamification. Movement is another important form of hands-on learning. This could be as simple as taking students outside for a class, or it could be having the students get up and stretch a little.
So, what are some ways that we can make our classroom interactive? Think pair share, which is where students individually think or reflect on a question or prompt first. Then they discuss their thoughts with a partner or small group. And finally, they share their ideas with the whole class. And finally, here we have how to use apps and websites such as Google, YouTube, ChatGPT, etc. Rosa and I are often surprised at how many students do not know how to effectively search for information online. So it would really help if we could kind of guide them in this process.
Invite guest professionals. Use technologies to connect with experts. We live in an age where technology makes instant communication across long distances possible, and we should take advantage of it, just like we're doing right now with Dr. Fontaine, because she's not in my office, she's somewhere else, and we make it happen. And so there's so many applications: Skype, Google Meet, FaceTime, WhatsApp, Messenger, Zoom. The list is very long. And so we should absolutely take advantage of it. Inviting in-person guests. Yes, sometimes it might be costly because if you invite a famous person, you have to pay. But you can invite locals. Not everyone has to be famous. For example, for my German diction class, I invited my good friend, German friend, Marian, who lives here in Starkville. And she spoke German to my students. She also brought some German food, and students absolutely loved it.
Alumni are another wonderful resource. They can share what it's like to make the transition from student to employee in their field. And sometimes alumni will even volunteer to present or talk with students for free because they want to give back to their institution.
The other way, of course, is to collaborate with other colleagues and universities. And most of us already do that, but it's always nice thing to remember that many tenure track faculty are looking for the opportunity to perform, to exchange. So use that opportunity, invite your colleagues to talk to your students.
Next in our list, we have exclude unnecessary memorization. First, new knowledge becomes obsolete in a shorter period of time today. This is due to the rapid pace of advancements and evolving technologies. Technology provides us with countless examples of this, such as cassette tapes and VHS tapes, which have essentially become obsolete within our lifetimes.
Even the dress code has changed. Comfort is valued more than style. When I used to audition for opera companies, it was the dress code was always a black dress below the knee, and now you can wear whatever you want as long as you sing well.
Memorization of readily accessible facts is also less necessary today. So we have so much information at our fingertips at all times. Especially the younger generations do not see the worth in memorizing vast amounts of facts when they can look them up so easily.
Emphasis should be placed on critical thinking, problem solving, and information synthesis. Rather than memorizing dates, have students focus on critical thinking, using information to solve problems and make connections. Everything should be made as simple as possible, but not simpler.
So we're going to talk a little bit about what to memorize and how to memorize. I do want to emphasize we're not saying that nothing is worth memorizing. So, for example, both Rosa and I are in the field of music. And in music, if we want to perform a piece, most of the time the expectation is that we will memorize it. This is because it makes the performance more enjoyable for the performers and for the audience. So there's definitely value in memorization. The question that we are posing here is that with so much information in the world, what should we memorize? So we have some recommendations here based on a lot of the sources that we consulted for this presentation.
What are some of the tools that we can use to memorize things? One of them is, of course, connecting new knowledge to familiar knowledge. For example, when you learn the language, the first thing the teachers usually ask is to find the cognates. Am I saying it correctly, Dr. Fontaine?
Yes.
Yeah, it's the words that sound the same in almost every language or something like that. So always connect something that people, students already know. Retrieval practice, a learning strategy that involves actively recalling information from memory rather than simply reviewing it. Spacing, my favorite, a learning technique that involves spacing out study sessions over time rather than cramming all the information together. And another one is being aware of the effect of emotions on attention and memory. Attaching an emotion often helps us to remember better, especially in music. And of course, ask students to demonstrate their understanding through explanation or presentation.
It's important to remember that without understanding, memorization is useless.
And here are some examples of how you can offer options for the assignments or project. Offering choices can make our jobs more difficult initially, but over time, I think we can adapt to this new approach.
What's great about choice, it enables students to feel engaged and empowered, which is extremely important for their education. Learning management systems. This is one way to teach skills without standardized grading. Usually an online platform, it awards students with badges or certificates upon completion of certain tasks, and this can give students a sense of accomplishment without the pressure of a grading system.
To summarize, we have listed some of the broad takeaways from our presentation.
Most of all, explore and experiment. We have to be lifelong learners as teachers, and that's what we're trying to teach our students. So we have to be open to learning as much as possible and then trying to implement these ideas slowly over time.
If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. Here, you can see our emails right there.
These were the primary references that we used for this presentation, for those who are interested, but we can provide a complete list upon request. Thank you so much for watching our presentation.
Bye-bye.